Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Addiction Nutritionist podcast. I have an amazing guest today, my really good friend, Chris Engen. She is the founder of Nutrition for Recovery. I don't remember exactly how long ago we met, but I think it's probably been at least 4-ish years, maybe 5. And I'm so excited to have you on today. Today's topic is amino acids and amino acid therapy. And I don't know anybody else that is better at this than you, outside of our mentors. Absolutely. Hands down, it's you. I've learned so much from you. You're so incredibly skilled at this. And so I'm really excited to dive into our conversation today. But first, I'm going to introduce our sponsor for today, which is avocados. We always have a food sponsor. This is my little way of sharing just really nutrient dense foods and highlighting really the nutrient density of certain foods and how they can be so healing. So after we introduce avocados, we'll get into it. So one of the interesting things I learned about avocados when I was researching them is that they're actually a berry. Did you know that, Chris? They're considered a berry.
I knew they were a fruit, but no,
Yeah.
I didn't know they were a berry.
I also
Do
knew they
tell.
were a fruit, but that's only been a discovery in the last couple of years. I didn't know that until a few years ago. And then I recently found out they're considered a berry. So I thought that was really fascinating. I used to live in California, not where you live. You're in Northern California. I was in Southern,
Yes.
but we would hop the fences of places and actually go pull them off the trees, and
Oh,
take them home and eat them. So I'm
so
embarrassed to say
lucky.
that, but yeah,
Yeah.
they are chock full of healthy fats. They have omega-3 fats, which are considered an essential fatty acid. They also have monounsaturated fats, which is really what makes like the Mediterranean diet so popular, is it's how rich it is in monounsaturated fats. Chock full of vitamins, vitamin E, B6, vitamin C, vitamin K, niacin, folate, magnesium, potassium. Some of these nutrients very critical for mental health. Like, we won't get too much into the nutrients today, but we have talked in previous episodes about, the importance of things like B6 and folate for helping us to make serotonin and dopamine and that sort of thing. It also is a great source of lutein and zeaxanthin. I don't know if you've heard about these nutrients lately, but I feel like they're getting a little bit of a spotlight on them. They're coming up more, like in the literature
Mhm.
and even on commercials, and people are talking about their benefits for eye health. But
Yeah.
lutein and zeaxanthin can also boost your brain's processing speed. So
Oh, I need that.
that's exactly what I was thinking when I was reading about that. I was like, who doesn't need a faster brain? Some of the other things I love about them: 2 times as much potassium than a banana. Banana really gets like all the hype when we talk
I
about
know.
potassium.
I
Why is
actually did
that?
know that. I did know that fact. Yes.
Yeah.
And coconut water too is something that doesn't get a lot of hype for potassium. And I think it might be
Oh,
more than bananas. But sorry, not to take your attention off. Maybe that can be your food of the week another time.
yeah. No, that's a good one. I actually didn't know that. I
Yeah,
usually go
yeah.
straight to the avocados when we're talking about potassium. It's got like 10% of your daily intake of potassium, which is really important for helping to lower blood pressure and that sort of thing. Rich in antioxidants, they're anti-inflammatory. One of the things I really love about them too is that one whole medium avocado has 12 grams of fiber in it, which is
Yeah.
a lot of fiber, like a lot more than most people are getting at any sit down meal, right?
Oh, definitely. And it's so delicious and satisfying too. So if you didn't eat the whole avocado, eating half an avocado for 6 grams of fiber is really good. I think that's
Yep.
1/5 of what you need for the day, maybe. So
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
A few years ago, I did an experiment where I ate one whole avocado every single day for a year, and I wanted to see what the benefits were. Yeah. And the thing that I noticed the most was how shiny and pretty my hair got, and my
Oh,
skin. Like,
oh,
yeah,
wow.
my hair and my skin. And to a degree, I feel like a lot of the ridges went away and my nails too. But yeah, that was super fun. So
A year, Kelly, you're committed. That's a long experiment.
that is that's one of my strong suits, actually. Because I did not have this when I was younger or when I was growing up, but now as a 42-year-old woman, one of the things I've developed is that if I commit to something, I will 100% follow through. I don't have tons of strengths, but that's definitely one. So,
Yes, you
um,
do.
And then, also all that fiber, a lot of people are not totally sure why fiber is good for them. They know it kind of like helps move stool through the GI tract. But one of the things that avocados they have found in research is that it helps to produce short chain fatty acids, including butyrate, which is really important for preventing things like colon cancer. So it's good for your gut, but it's also really good for your colon, as being a part of the gut.
Absolutely. And isn't it, fiber is what feeds prebiotics, I believe. So it's the fertilizer, if you will, for the probiotics for gut health, which are so
Yes.
important. So
So
you're
important.
making me
Yeah.
want to
Like,
eat an avocado.
I know. That's the other thing is like probiotics also get all the hype, but now the tide is turning a little bit and people are focusing more on the prebiotics, which I
Yes,
think is actually great because it's putting more of a focus on eating more fiber instead of just taking a supplement.
totally. It's putting more focus on that root cause, exactly, of not coming in at the end and saying, oh, I need probiotics. It's like, how can I fertilize my gut so that there will be healthy bacteria? So perhaps you don't have to actually take supplemental probiotics. And yeah,
Exactly.
nobody knows. I hadn't even heard of the word prebiotic until about 5 years ago. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah,
same. Totally.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Avocado, for sponsoring us today. We're gonna go for sure throw some on our salad today or throw some olive oil on our avocados. All right. So to formally introduce my guest here today, Chris Engen, I could totally wing this because I feel like I know so much about you and your business, but I'm going to read just a little short bio. So Chris specializes in amino acid therapy, the use of supplemental amino acids to replenish depleted neurotransmitter systems. She helps people balance their brains so they can cope with stress and make good choices for their lives. Amino acids and a high protein diet changed her life and were the missing piece, all caps, missing piece to her recovery program. She has helped hundreds of people successfully use amino acids to curb their cravings for alcohol, sugar, and other substances and addictive behaviors. Not just for addiction, though, amino acid therapy is useful to anyone because she believes everyone is in recovery from something. Oh my gosh, 100%, right? Everyone is in recovery from something.
Yes.
She's board certified in holistic nutrition. That's a national board certification. And she holds a nutrition consultant certificate from Bowman College of Holistic Nutrition and Culinary Arts. She also has an advanced certification as a recovery nutrition coach, specializing in nutrition therapy and amino acid therapy from the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition, which is how Chris and I met. We met through the Academy. So it was really our love and interest and amino acid therapy that brought us together, which is what all of this conversation is going to be about today. So
Yes, exciting.
thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to dig into this conversation. Like I said, there's not a lot of people like in my circuit or sphere of influence or whatever that I can have these conversations with because I'm the practitioner. I'm the one that's supposed to be most knowledgeable and I don't have a lot of those peers, but you are for sure a peer and an incredible resource for me. And so when I get to talk about this stuff with you, it's like all the little warm fuzzies start lighting up inside of me because I'm like, oh, like shared interests. She understands this stuff. Like, it's just so, I don't know anybody that gets excited as we do about this kind of stuff. So
It's
we
so
met
true.
we met at the Academy, and I know you well, but I would love for you to share a little bit about like whatever you want to share about in terms of what led you into this work. How did you land as the founder of Nutrition for Recovery and getting certified in amino acid therapy? I would love to hear some of that background story.
Okay, well, before I launch into that, I wanted to pass back to you the compliment you paid to me that I'm your go-to and nobody knows more about this than I do. And I'm sending that right back to you. You're my go-to. And to repeat what you said about that, I like to call it kind of like we're geek out and talk shop. And there's just so few people in this little arena that we're in that even understand what we're doing. So it's super exciting and warm fuzzy. And oh my gosh, she understands. I can have this conversation, because other people, when I start talking to them about it, their eyes glaze over and it's not nearly as satisfying. So,
Oh,
but
thank you for sharing that. That warms my heart. We are each
oh,
other's amino acid person.
you're so impressive to me with everything you do, from the programs you've created and your website, and just your ideas and how much you care about the people that you help. So just know that you're very much a very positive influence on me. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. So how I got into this, and of course that could be an hour at least conversation, but the short version is going to be that, well, first of all, it's a second career for me. I actually was in advertising for 25 years, very high level position, I was very successful at what I did, very passionate about it, loved it. All the time, though, kind of secretly struggling with drinking, with binge drinking in particular, and not finding any kind of solution to, as I was moving through my life. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening can relate to that high functioning. I'm not going to use the label alcoholic on myself because I don't feel that it applies. It's not comfortable for me, but just really having that be the only thing that was, I feel, in my way from really succeeding and having the life I wanted. And it was baffling to me that I would continue to use something that was causing me so many problems in my life. And I tried all the things, I like to say, quote unquote, all the things. And all the therapies, all the, the 12 step groups, just what's wrong with me? Help. I can't figure this out. So, series of events led me to stop working in my advertising as a media buyer. It was wonderful. I loved what I did, but there was a series of events with company downsizing and everything moving to digital. I'm more of a people person. Things changed a lot in the industry. So that's when I decided I wanted to go back to school for nutrition, because I'd always been interested in, get this, nutrition and psychology. That was actually, if I would have maybe majored in that if they'd had it. I went to UC Santa Barbara and actually was an economics major. So it seems like this couldn't be farther from that, but there's actually a lot of similarities. But they just didn't have nutrition, or they did have psychology, but of course my parents were like, oh, you should be a business major. You can do so much more with that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, I'm sure
Same
so many
here.
of us, right? So who knows what would have happened, but it doesn't matter. So at the age of 47, a Google search produced Bowman College in Berkeley. Loved it. Oh my God, I was in my place, all of my, like you said, your colleagues, and I actually went in person. This is before Zoom was,
Wow.
2016. Zoom wasn't really a thing, I guess, or if it was, I wasn't using it, and have all these wonderful little colleagues all over. That was in my graduating class. And so as I'm going through and studying, I'm still struggling with periodic binge drinking. And when I landed on the chapter for mental nutrition for mental health, and descriptions of neurotransmitters as the chemical messengers in the brain and how they can be imbalanced and what each one does, I just got goosebumps talking. I'm not kidding. I had like the biggest light bulb moment for my own self, because even the nutrients and all that also were helping me a lot. The food part, in terms of, wow, I'm not taking care of myself with what I'm eating. I thought I was eating healthy. I'm an athlete, take pride in my appearance. I don't like to be overweight. So I always thought I was doing a good job with my nutrition. But first of all, it was eye-opening for my nutrition. And then second of all, this chemical messenger piece just blew my mind. And from that day forward, it was just a small chapter. But even before I graduated from Bowman, I immediately called Julia Ross, who's over across the bay.
You
I will never
called her?
forget it. Yeah, I'm like you. So you said when you commit to something, you do it. Like
Yeah.
when I'm excited about something, there is no stopping. I can unturn every stone to figure out where
Wow.
I want to go, what I want to do. Like I have no fear. I knew, because one of my instructors had said, Nori Hudson, loved her. She said, "Oh, you really need to," she saw how interested I was in it, and I'd asked her for more information, and she said, you really should meet with somebody who's an amino acid therapist." And I'd never heard that before. I'm like, an amino acid therapist? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, Julia Ross, read The Mood Cure, Julia Ross, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, no, I'm not going to just read The Mood Cure. I'm going to call her.
That is awesome. I have not heard that part of your story. I love that.
Yeah, well, she's really just she just loves being a mentor. She loves what she's the pioneer of amino acid therapy, as probably I know you know, but hopefully the listeners know. She's the one that created these charts that we use, symptom based, and really just developed such a genius formula that is so underutilized by people. So so to loop back to the point of this, connected with Julia Ross and started having ongoing conversations with her. And she really kind of took me under her wing, and I learned and still do learn so much directly from the person who actually wrote the book, which is fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
And I started applying that to myself. So basically started using amino acids, using Julia's chart for my own symptoms, and trying to, again, figure out why I continued to go back to drinking. Why could I not stop? Anyway, that would be another whole separate conversation. But I'm sure if anybody else is struggling with alcohol out there or sugar, I don't have a sugar problem. You and I have talked about the differences interesting between, for instance, I know you're open about your struggle with smoking. I am that, to you, probably annoying person that could have a cigarette once every 3 weeks, and
How dare you?
Be like, who cares? Yeah. Sugar, I really am pretty darn good about eating 1 or 2 cookies, and but no, not with alcohol. So that piece, to me, I don't have the answer. What is it in our brain that has one person light up for one substance and another person for another? And Kenneth Blum's work about the dopamine connection and the D2 receptor, when his book, oh my goodness, I can't think, it's up here, I could grab it.
Alcohol.
The one about ADD, overstimulated over something.
Is it this one? Alcohol in the addictive brain?
Actually, no.
Oh
my goodness. It's overload.
Oh, okay.
Overload. Yeah. I read that. I was like, okay, I know I have a genetic, I just know it. And there are tests. I'm sure the GARS test, which I was all thrilled about, genetic addictive, which one. Yeah. But then I heard that it wasn't really that reliable. I never actually had it done. Anyway, the point of what I'm saying, to answer your original question, I just got so enthused. I used myself. That was it. I started seeing how eating protein, using glutamine, helped me not get in that space where my brain was offline, where it would be like, what just happened? Like it was almost like a blackout from low blood sugar, a blackout of not being able to make an intelligent decision for the intention I'd set for myself. So I'd say glutamine was probably, and the protein, because I used to restrict food, eating regular meals and not trying any of the inner, I know some people do so well with, I know you love fasting. Fasting for me is not a good idea. So, let
me just clarify. I don't love fasting for people in recovery, and I do not fast anymore. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that fasting has therapeutic benefits for the right person and the right circumstance, but I don't ever recommend it for people in recovery.
I definitely do not either. I can't tell you how many people have said to me, just eating breakfast. And, they can eat breakfast. I don't have to eat breakfast at 7, eat breakfast at 10. I just tell people to eat a high protein breakfast before you feel hungry. You want to get before you start to get those hunger pangs, because that's what sends, at least with me, because 90% of people with alcohol use disorder are hypoglycemic and never knew. All right. I didn't have to go and do the, test at at Kaiser where they do your blood prick over several hours. I just know I am.
Mhm.
So if can eat before I get too hungry, then I don't crave anything. I don't. I'm good. I'm online. I know if I wait until I start to get hungry, I start getting crazy ideas in my head that I might be able to have a drink. I mean, it
Oh my
really, I'm not,
gosh, isn't that
yeah,
fascinating?
it's fascinating. It's
So
fascinating.
deeply like entangled with our hunger and satiety signals and cravings. Such an interesting topic. We could totally talk
We,
forever on that too.
oh my
So
gosh, I know.
it was
Yeah.
funny because when I found the academy, like very similar experience to you, where I was just like, it was like the gods were shining down on me of like, this is the moment that's going to change my life. And what I was drawn to the academy was the nutrition piece. I didn't even know what amino acid therapy was. So I was like, oh, I'm going to learn this really cool thing alongside the nutrition that will help myself and people in recovery. So for people that are listening, so I've done previous podcasts about protein and nutrients and all of that. Can you tell us what are amino acids?
Oh, well, the most basic way to describe amino acids is that they are the building blocks of protein.
Mhm.
Amino acids make up protein, and then protein makes up neurotransmitters, which are the chemical messengers in our brain.
Mhm.
So, for the purpose of being an amino acid therapist, that's the function. The amino acids, in terms of free form amino acids and supplemental amino acids. So there's the amino acids that are in the protein you eat, and then there's the capsules that you can buy at any drugstore, full script account from, I have an online dispensary. Do you? Yeah,
Mhm.
you have a full script online
Mhm.
dispensary. So they're free form grown amino acids powder that are generally in capsules.
Mhm.
And the capsules, to use the amino acids, the best way to use them is to actually open the capsule and put it on your tongue directly, the powder, so that it can absorb through, not only in your gut, it is better absorbed, but also it starts absorbing in your mouth.
Mhm.
So yes,
So if
there's supplements.
that's a great description. So we know that protein, so if we were to eat a piece of chicken or a piece of beef or an egg, that protein breaks down into individual amino acids that our body uses to build other proteins that might be building your hair and your skin and your nails, but for the purpose of this conversation, also really
Yes.
important mood regulating neurotransmitters. So when we move into this conversation, kind of getting in, having a deeper conversation about these individual amino acids, I'm curious how you would answer the question, well, if they're already in food, why would I need to take them in capsule form?
I have a great answer for that.
Oh,
The
good.
reason why is because food doesn't have enough. If you're depleted, and I love to use the example of a serving of turkey because everybody knows about turkey and tryptophan for the most part, I think, right?
Right.
So 1 4-ounce serving of turkey has approximately 500 milligrams of tryptophan. If you're going through the trialing process of determining how much tryptophan you need to feel a positive shift in your mood, that means you're replenishing your neurotransmitters because you can feel it happening. And I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. I have clients that, yes, 500 can be fine, but especially with my clients in recovery from alcohol use disorder, they oftentimes need 1,500 or 2,000 milligrams, and that's per dose. That's not just one time. So you would have to eat 20 ounces of turkey to get the same amount.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Incredible,
answer.
right? And
Yep.
nobody's doing that. Nobody's eating 20 ounces of turkey.
Nobody's
So
in.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, that lends to the question of, well, why would somebody have a depletion of
Mhm.
amino acids, or why would somebody be depleted in their neurotransmitters? And how does that relate back to, entering into that period of recovery or abstinence?
Well, so not only, of course, drugs, alcohol, those deplete neurotransmitters. Those deplete I mean, we could talk about the receptors and all that, but I think we were going to keep it pretty straightforward. So your neurotransmitter systems are depleted by overuse of alcohol, overuse of drugs, standard American diet. Genetics can play a part, lack of sleep can play a part, and the biggie is stress. Stress can deplete neurotransmitters. So at any point, people aren't, I mean, I feel like most people, to be honest, probably aren't optimal in all four of their neurotransmitter systems. And they don't know that they can easily bring themselves back up to optimal by using these targeted amino acids, not forever, but just until they feel replenished again, along with food and along with good sleep hygiene and all, sleep's right up there.
Mhm.
All of the other good health practices. But it's just such a beautiful tool for people who, whether you're full blown struggling with drinking every single day and you can't stop, or having periodic insomnia, trouble sleeping, this low serotonin, or stress. My kids actually use GABA for stress. I've introduced the amino acids to them and they absolutely love them, and they don't take them every day, but they take them like before a test or for social anxiety and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I love the whole, like, that's why the chart that we use that was developed by Julia Ross is so important. I'm guessing you would agree with this, but literally through every resource that I've read, a symptoms-based analysis is the most accurate way of assessing somebody's depletions. Like, you can test them in the urine. And I even have a test where I use bioenergetics to test them. And then, you can test them in a very, very impractical way by using things like cerebrospinal fluid, which is really not practical at all. But the symptoms-based assessment, by far, I have found, with my personal experience, completely aligns with the literature, that it is the most accurate. And people are so individually different, right? Like, I'm hearing you say the ones your kids are using. You mentioned some that were really impactful for you, like glutamine. And then for me, GABA, by far has been the most impactful on my life. So using something like that chart is so important for helping people to fine tune, if they want to pursue amino acid therapy, to really get a targeted protocol for that speaks to their specific depletions and their specific symptoms.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I know when people come to me with their urine neurotransmitter reports that they received from their naturopath, and they want me to analyze it, and I just say, I
do the chart.
This is not useful to me. I want you to start with the chart. It's the most, because your urine, and this is from Julia, but your urine isn't measuring necessarily your brain levels of neurotransmitters. And I think people get way too hung up on what a piece of paper says. I mean, I know they do, versus the biofeedback of actually, you're the person that knows what you're feeling and what's in your brain, and to familiarize yourself with the chart and with the amino acid solutions for each of the sections, and trial them. And then knowing that if you trial them and they don't work, it's almost like a diagnostic, like, okay, something else is going on, or this isn't the right approach. Move on. Okay, I tried 5-HTP, nothing happened. I started with 50 and I went up to 300. And at that point, I tell people, there's no specific upper limit, but I feel like once you get to 300 milligrams of 5-HTP, if you're not feeling anything, that we would then move to the next amino acid, which would be tryptophan, or vice versa, depending on which one they started with.
Let's talk about that a little bit. So when we talk about the neurotransmitters, there's like over 100 different neurotransmitters, but the ones that we talk about are what are referred to as the mood regulating neurotransmitters. And there's really just four: serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and the endorphins. So going back to the serotonin conversation, serotonin is the hormone that is referred to as the happy hormone. It helps us to feel content, have a sense of satisfaction. It allows us to laugh at jokes. It just really gives you that sense of well-being. it's very closely related. The depletions, I would say, are very closely related to things like fear and irritability and anxiousness and OCD to an extent. And so if you're doing a chart on somebody and you're noticing, wow, this person's really, and we won't get into the process of how you interpret the chart, but you can see this person needs serotonin support. How do you determine whether or not they start with 5-HTP or tryptophan? Those are the two amino acids that we would use to support serotonin. So how do you kind of go about that process?
Well, so first, as you know, if they are on an SSRI, we would make sure that either one of those is separated by 6 hours. It's still fine to trial them if you're taking an SSRI, but make sure to avoid serotonin syndrome. And the decision-making process is actually pretty simple. I let them know the precautions involved with each amino acid for not precautions, I'm sorry, potential side effects.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very rare that these happen, and they're usually quite mild, but 5-HTP can cause nausea for some people, and it can cause a slight cortisol release.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody said they're very prone to, supplements, I'm so sensitive, I get nauseous when I take them, I start with tryptophan. If somebody seems like they're super high stress, high cortisol already in the morning, if it's a morning dose, I might steer towards tryptophan. Or conversely, if they're very flat and blah, and it wasn't a low catecholamine symptom, like I would see no reason why I wouldn't want a little cortisol release from 5-HTP from somebody who's got very low energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs right now.
No, it's okay.
And then with tryptophan, okay, so tryptophan, if somebody is definitely if somebody is overusing alcohol in the evenings in the wine witching hour, I really like to put tryptophan in front of it, like at about 4 o'clock. And because serotonin dips at around 5. That's why they call it happy hour for a reason. That's when everyone's serotonin dips and they're reaching for something else. Yep. And so because tryptophan can be sedating, I like the idea of having people try that right before their wine witch hour starts in their dose, right? So again, I don't think it hurts to repeat a couple times throughout this interview on the trialing of not everybody's going to take the same amount. One person might take just 500 milligrams, one person might take 2,000. And you can actually take 2 different doses within the same day. So say at 4 o'clock, you're taking 1,000 milligrams of tryptophan. And then before bed, you take 2,000 because it will make you sleepier at that dose. So generally speaking, I like to use 5-HTP earlier in the day and tryptophan later in the day for trialing. And then a person can pick one or the other, or I have some people that actually use both in the same day.
Yeah, I would say that my process is very similar. I have a little bit of a bias towards using 5-HTP first. I tend to like to prefer that one just because it's already the step that's converted further. And so you take, anyways, we won't get into the weeds, but I do that as well. So I'll often have people take 5-HTP in the morning, in the afternoon. You never know when somebody's going to feel that, that 5-HTP is stimulating for them. So that's usually why I do that. And we keep tryptophan at night. And then the only other thing I would say, I loved what you were pointing out about the nausea, because I have had some folks that will right away tell you, like, I usually get really nauseous with supplements. Yeah. So if they're not one of those people and the nausea comes on with 5-HTP, the next thing I usually do is have them try it with like a bite or 2 of yogurt or applesauce. But then if it still does, we switch over to tryptophan. But man, I just love everything that you said, the whole, like the happy hour thing, serotonin does convert into melatonin about halfway through the day, when the sun starts to go down. And so if you're a very healthy, well-nourished person, then you've got enough serotonin, it converts into enough melatonin. You can now sleep appropriately at the right times. But as you know, and I know, and so many people probably listening to this, sleep can just be like this elusive thing. So challenging. And so many people don't know the connection between serotonin and melatonin, or maybe they've heard some of this crazy stories about years and years ago where tryptophan was banned, right? And it had nothing to do with tryptophan. It had to do with it being a bad batch that had been produced in China. So it was basically like a poisoned batch that made everybody sick, but literally had nothing to do with the tryptophan itself. So,
and I still get questions about that to this day of
yeah,
people
me too.
saying, yeah, tryptophan, no, tryptophan's bad.
Yeah.
But if people, I also, I think we're in a couple of similar, our students of the Academy Forum and that kind of thing, where I think even just recently, I like that I can talk to you through that of what I shared there was, I'm not in the convincing mode with anything I do, really. As I've gotten older and everything, if someone truly doesn't want to try tryptophan and they want to argue with me about that, that's fine. Use 5-HTP and don't try tryptophan. I mean,
Totally.
okay,
Yeah.
maybe it might be what works wonderfully for you, but I'm not in a position to go begging and convincing people to do something.
Yeah, totally. I'm the same way. I think as you get older, you start to realize that your energy is finite and it needs to be used in a valuable way. So I can't agree more. Before we move on to dopamine, I want to make sure we have time to talk about all four. How fast do you see people respond to these once you start trialing and getting their dosages right? How quick does that happen for you?
It's they respond. I have them trial to where they feel a response. So it could be anywhere between the first dose, which could be like 5 minutes. And I've done some of the trialing live, and it's just incredible to watch the person literally change in front of your eyes. It can be, between 5 minutes, or if they're getting up to a much higher dose, then it can be a half hour, maybe an hour, I think, but it is that fast. So I'm using the hour, probably about an hour would be the longest, just because if they're taking 5 or 6 capsules, that's about the amount of time it takes to where they're like, oh, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
I feel, fill in the blanks. And then they can't believe it sometimes. They're like, no, this didn't really work.
They think it's placebo or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is one of the things I think is the most amazing things about amino acids is how quickly they work. I mean, it's just fascinating. And like I was saying earlier, GABA is by far my favorite, and the immediate benefits that I get from it are nothing that I've ever been able to replicate on my own, unfortunately.
It's so true.
There's so many amazing benefits to like doing yoga and going on a walk and going out in nature. But I've yet to be able to really mimic the benefits that I get from GABA. So it's really miraculous for me.
It is. And I'll say on that, where if somebody doesn't feel a change at all from the amino acids, it's definitely looking at their cofactors that they have. They need to have the B6, they need to have magnesium at adequate levels, vitamin C, potassium we talked about earlier. So most of the time, I'm sure you also have them start with a B vitamin and or as part of a multivitamin that has all of those necessary cofactors, because unless their diet is really, really sound, and if they're coming to us depleted already, it's probably pretty likely that it's not. So just that they would at least on a temporary basis take supplements with the vitamins and minerals that are needed so the amino acids can convert. And then also, as you know, the condition of pyroluria, which also can make it so that amino acids aren't, when people come to you and say, oh, they're not working. Something to look at would be, it's a genetic condition where a person is deficient in B6 and zinc. And as you know, excreted through your urine. It's a byproduct of hemoglobin synthesis. And then that can be remedied by taking high dose methylated B6 and zinc in the form of zinc picolinate. And there's the zinc taste test, which I know people love all of these hands-on. I love all the naturopathic tests on how to make this work. And I love people love using this liquid zinc sulfate to see, okay, if it tastes like water, I'm uber deficient. And that's so eye-opening. And I've actually had people just start taking zinc and they're all of a sudden not as anxious because low zinc is linked to
Yeah.
anxiety.
So many
Yeah.
people do not know about, so many people do not know about pyroluria. I mean, I very rarely meet somebody that knows anything about pyroluria, but also
Yeah.
the zinc tally. Like I am
Hmm.
such a big fan of like these cheap, inexpensive,
Hmm.
ways you can diagnose different things at home. And the zinc tally is like $10, it's
Yep.
so cheap, I think. And such an easy way for you to see if you have a zinc deficiency, which also is fascinating to me because I get so many people, especially I work in a treatment center as well as my private practice. I get a lot of folks that come through the treatment center that talk about how picky eaters they are. They're just such picky eaters, or certain things taste really weird to them or whatever. And that's like the first thing I want to do is the zinc tally test, because if you're deficient in zinc, it affects the way that you taste food.
Yes. Yes. That's just fascinating.
Yeah. I just wonder how many quote unquote picky eaters actually just need more zinc.
I know.
Yeah,
It's so true. And it's
I
just such
know.
an easy way to measure it.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about dopamine, which falls under the catecholamine category. Tell me
Mhm.
a little bit about the aminos that we use to support dopamine and what dopamine does for us.
Well, so dopamine is, I just like to call it the spark of life.
I do too.
Dopamine, like, I don't have that spark. Yeah. So dopamine provides the spark of life. It's energy, ability to focus, to multitask. It's energy, positive energy. And the difference actually between, so we just went over serotonin, obviously. So there's the low serotonin depression, which is the under a dark cloud depression, and the low catecholamine depression, which is that slow, sluggish, apathetic, can't get started depression.
Mhm.
And that's one of the main questions I ask people when we're going through the chart. If they're not able, if something's not glaringly standing out and they're saying, well, you know, which kind of depression are you? And maybe they're both, but most of the time they know what kind they are. So
Mhm.
yeah, dopamine, the two best amino acids for that were, the best one would be tyrosine, it converts to dopamine. The precursor is L-phenylalanine, and it's a lot milder. And not to get off too far, but LPA is also in L-phenylalanine, which is a nice combination of endorphin and catecholamine support.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
actually love
tyrosine,
the LPA.
ends up being so many people's best friend. It was along with the glutamine. So I definitely was a low cat, say a low cat drinker, and I will clarify that. And that's another main question that when a person's going through the amino acid therapy chart to ask themselves, I always say, why are you grabbing for your drug of choice?
Mhm.
Sugar, cigarettes, alcohol,
Mhm.
sex, gambling. Like what is it that's making you want that? And for me, it was, believe it or not, I used to think it was kind of rare, but I don't think it's that rare anymore. That alcohol helped me focus. It helped me. It was like I was seeking that up feeling, like I feel so blah and flat, and I just want to feel focused and up and energized. And I don't want to do this boring laundry. And my life is so boring unless I use this to feel up.
Mhm.
A lot of other people. So that's the thing about alcohol, is that of all of the drugs that are out there, it's really the only one, maybe tobacco, but that people can use for um,
Mhm.
each neurotransmitter system,
Mhm.
because people use it for, oh, I'm depressed, I'm in a drain,
Yeah.
the under the cloud, low serotonin type depression, or the low serotonin anxiety, the worrisome anxiety. I have to turn off my brain. The GABA, the stress, right? Oh, I'm so stressed. The endorphins. Oh, I need to escape. I have to get out of here right now. I want to numb out. Or it would be using for, like I described, of I need some energy. I need to get amped up here. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, the obvious other one would be cocaine, is obviously low for people with low catecholamines. They've drawn towards cocaine and meth.
Mhm.
But then, yeah, alcohol can be used for any deficiencies. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
usually it's alcohol and marijuana It's those two that can hit really equally across the board on all four of those. And so that's why, as practitioners, it is so important that we are asking them why, that exactly what you said. Why did you grab for that? Because you can get so much information about their depletions just by simply asking that question. For you, you were trying to activate yourself to get that motivation from the catecholamines to get up and get moving. For me, it was GABA, right? I drank because it seemed to be the only thing at the time that could create that downshifting relaxation feeling that I was looking for. So super interesting stuff. But if you are low in dopamine, and you and I have talked about this a lot, if you have ADD or ADHD, by the way, you might very much fall into this category because you're seeking the stimulation, you know. If you have ADD or ADHD, by the way, you have enzymes, more than likely, this is what they found through the research, the enzymes that degrade dopamine in the brain are quicker to act than in somebody that isn't. So if you take two college students, one of them who is neurotypical sits through a college class for 50 minutes and they're just like, their brain's online and they're totally tuned in and focused the whole time. Maybe at the end of that hour, those enzymes come in and just gradually degrade that dopamine. But for folks like us who struggle with ADHD, those enzymes might work in the first 15, 20 minutes of the class. And so it's like, it came in and wiped the slate clean. And now we've lost that chemical that keeps our brain online. So anyways, if you're depleted and you find yourself reaching for stimulants like caffeine, it can be nicotine to a degree. You know, cocaine, methamphetamines, or potentially alcohol, you got a low cat problem, you know?
Yes. And the tyrosine seems to, at least with the people I work with, it's the most just like, oh my God, my world has changed. The leaves, you know, the trees are greener. Life has come into full focus, and it's not even for some people just in recent memory, but their whole lives. Like, oh wow, I have never realized other people felt like this. And I've had that other people, I call it like the other people disease of always wondering, like, what's wrong with me? How do other people feel? I say other people so much, it cracks me up. But I was always, and when I took tyrosine, I was like, this is how other people feel. This is how, wow, you know, I don't have to, oh my gosh, just all the things we do. And I know you work around your deficiencies, and you were saying, you know, you're very good at working with your ADD, ADHD. I'm very good at working with mine now. I have all three of my children have some version of it showing up in different ways. And I try to teach them it's okay. You know, this is not a defect. This is not something you need to feel bad about. You just need to learn how to work with it. And just the simplest example that I didn't figure out till about 10 years ago was, when you get up from a table, look behind and see what is still on the table. Or is your jacket hanging on the chair? Or is your purse hanging on the chair? Or your glasses on the table? Because I will come in with a jacket, and I'm always like kind of hot anyway, but I can't even tell you how many jackets I've lost because I go to a restaurant and I put it on the back of my chair. And then I don't even remember it ever existed, Kelly, until I go and look at a picture of myself. And I'm like, whatever happened to that super cute jacket?
That's hysterical.
It's horrible. And, you know, tyrosine does, so to circle back to the aminos, when I first quit drinking, when I first realized tyrosine was my magic bullet, I was taking like 1,500 milligrams twice a day, and it was unbelievable. And then that was about for 3 months. And then I really kind of went to an as needed. And I do teach people that it cannot hurt ever to just carry. What my favorite thing is that to teach people how to use each of these amino acids for their symptoms in the right dose, so then they don't need me anymore. They know what to do. So if I'm carrying tyrosine with me, then I know if I'm starting to feel really off and scattered, I know that I can take it. And in about 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to feel like, wow, I'm back on. And I'm truly, you know, I'm being completely honest. That experience is just incredible.
No, it's amazing. When I talk about dopamine, it's literally the chemical that makes me feel alive. It can be life or death for me in terms of the way that I approach my day. Either I am fully alive and I'm completely
Yes.
fueled up with dopamine, or I am not getting SHIT done today.
Yep.
And I love Michael Joseph Ferguson, who wrote the book The Drummer in the Great Mountain, which is for people with ADD, but he describes low dopamine as low batteries. You feel like you have low
Mm,
batteries. And I'm like,
yes.
that is exactly what it feels like for me.
Yes. And I need to get the name of that book from you later then,
Yeah,
because I don't.
we'll talk.
Okay.
Okay, we've got two more to get through, and
Yes.
we're on a time block. So I want to make sure we get to them. So let's talk about GABA next. So I've always, looked at GABA as nature's anti-anxiety, nature's Valium. And like I was sharing earlier, it's been the most impactful amino acid for me. Tell me about how you like to use GABA.
So GABA, I use for people that first I kind of distinguish between their anxiety and the difference between the low serotonin anxiety, which is really that repetitive worry, ruminating thoughts, the kind like sleep onset, you can't get to sleep because you just can't stop thinking about something. It's a little different than the physical stress that low GABA more often presents itself, where it's like your shoulders are up to your ears, tense muscles, stiff tense muscles, that, and then even the gut, we haven't mentioned how 90% of serotonin's in the gut, but that gut feeling of anxiety that a person can feel is low GABA and low serotonin. Um, and then the other main symptom is that sense of overwhelm. And however, the overwhelm can be low catecholamine. So
Mhm.
that's where the trialing again is so important, where one person's overwhelm could be low GABA, but another person's overwhelm could be low cat. Um,
100%.
yeah, and those oppose each other too. So that's a pretty important distinction. But usually GABA is the frontline, very first recommendation to answer your original question of um, particularly with sugar cravers. I
Mm.
mean, it's like sugar, if sugar's the thing,
Really?
yeah,
I've
because
always
people
gravitated towards serotonin for sugar.
really
Yeah.
interesting. I was, well, GABA and serotonin, though, like the tryptophan GABA or the 5-HTP GABA combo is amazing. And that's why I was bringing up serotonin anyways, the two
Yeah.
of those together. If they trial them separately, and then if it's for the cravings, if they put them together. But yeah, most people I work with that are using sugar, it's for stress. It's 100% stress related
Okay,
sugar
I see
cravings. Do
the
you see what I mean?
connection that you're making now. Okay,
Yeah,
they're reaching for the sugar to self-medicate with
just
the
self.
stress. In my
Yep.
brain, I was thinking from the biochemical perspective, because they've done lots of studies to show that low, depleted serotonin will induce sugar cravings.
Okay, yeah. And it will,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So, and generally speaking, that both of those, like I said, they do go hand in hand
Mhm.
to have a nice calming effect and to eliminate those cravings. And alcohol cravings too. Again, it depends on why if the person is using alcohol to unwind at the end of the day, which so many people do,
Mhm.
that using that GABA in front, I really try to have people like get in front of, know yourself, be super curious about, it's not about, you're a bad person, you have character defects, you're going to be in recovery fighting this thing for the rest of your life. I just like looking at it like really curious, like I'm put together like this.
Mhm.
Um, why? Like how am I put together? And if I want to change, how can I do that? And I just like how I love all the talk therapy. I love, I think that's all super valuable. But the reason why I landed on this in amino acid therapy and nutrition is because it is science and it is factual and it is something I like. Charts and graphs. That goes back, the business side, when I was like, how can I be like so into business and numbers, but so into psychology and
Yeah.
nutrition? And it does go together though. Like I found this little niche that's what it is, right? It's the chart. Um, and the biofeedback piece of not just having someone, not to, medical doctors and psychiatrists have a great place in the world for sure.
Mhm.
But I'd really like this option for people when they're struggling, because it's their own body telling them if they react to, if something they take is 100% natural and it makes them feel better right away, not taking a med that's going to take 6 to 8 weeks, and then there's a shot in the dark and all of those other reasons that
Mhm.
pharmaceuticals maybe aren't the best. They're
Little
incentivized.
to no side effects from amino acids. And
Yeah,
like you mentioned earlier, if there are side effects, they're incredibly rare, and you don't ever have to worry about withdrawal from taking amino acids. You can take amino acids and one day just completely stop, and you will not have a withdrawal effect.
right. And we did not mention, I don't know if you just saw my dog.
Yeah.
We didn't mention the vitamin C.
Mhm.
Super important. So if there is a side effect, that a person can take 1 to 2,000 milligrams. I usually just say 2,000 because why not?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
all at once, and it will reverse. It will take away that negative side effect. It works 100% of the time. I've literally never had anybody say the vitamin C didn't work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's an amazing, amazing remedy. And again, it's literally just for really mild symptoms. If somebody's anxiety sort of ratchets up a little bit or something, take some vitamin C, totally reverses it.
yeah.
Okay. I want to get to the last one, endorphins.
Yes.
This one is potentially one of the most fascinating neurotransmitters to me. I it really resonates with me when I look back over the span of my entire life, always being the person who teared up easily, who had a very low threshold for stress, and just always kind of feeling like I had less emotional resilience than everybody else. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely love the amino acid that is used for this. We mentioned DLPA, but there's one that is
Yep.
DPA, which doesn't have the stimulating effect. And that's the one that works really well with my body's chemistry. But would love to hear your take on endorphins, the aminos to support
Yeah.
it, all of that stuff.
Yeah. So as you just said, it's for people who cry and tear up easily, that
Love
highly
chocolate. Gotta mention
love
that.
chocolate. I love chocolate too.
Yeah.
Highly sensitive person, HSP, which is even now something people write about, and people who, when their cravings are for comfort, reward, and numbing. It's that, an escape. So, I'm using this to escape. It's, uh, this is so good. Oh, I love this. Like people who love fill in the blank. I love chocolate. I love ice cream. Julia Ross even got it down to like the bready, doughy cravers, because it's that comforting food. Um, Heroin users are very low
Yes.
endorphins.
Gabor Mate talks in his book, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, about how a woman once explained to him that heroin felt like a big hug.
Hug.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like a
It's
hug from your grandma. It's like the most amazing, when you're getting that endorphins, being like cradled in your mother's arm as an infant, there's that word love is key,
that
so,
word
so
love.
important.
And that's how clients describe it without me
Mhm.
even prompting them to say it was a warm hug. I had somebody I try not to say, well, they're always like, what am I going to feel? Why don't we just wait and see what you feel? Oh,
Yeah.
it feels like a warm hug.
Yeah.
Oh, and so endorphins, as you said, DPA, diphenylalanine, it's actually a synthetic amino acid. But don't, hopefully nobody's going to be opposed to that. It's an amino acid that was created to prevent the enzymes from degrading endorphins, and
Right.
endorphins are long chains of amino acids. So and DPA, super hard to find. Actually, the brand name I like is Endorphigen.
That's what I use, endorphin.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's in both of our dispensaries on full
Mhm.
script. And then any kind of like total amino, if a person wanted to take like the highest total amino solution they can find. I haven't been able to find one that has nearly enough,
Yeah.
but high protein will replace endorphins.
Mhm.
And I also love it. I'm also highly sensitive, and I hold it all together really well. And then it will just come out, and I am, oh my goodness, I get my feelings hurt so easily. I've done a lot of work on, gosh, just boundaries and figuring out, I always feel like, gosh, I'm so hopeful. I feel so misunderstood, and a lot of that's a bit of a segue, but it comes from not honoring your core values and then your boundaries. And so if I end up sacrificing something I believe in to make somebody else happy and be that people pleaser, and then they don't accept it or want it, or they don't respond the way I want, then I get my feelings really, really hurt. And I can like be so down about that. But in general, when I feel sad, I just like saying just the plain word sad. If I have like a sad feeling for no reason, I will take 1,000 milligrams of endorphin, maybe 1,500. It's a miracle,
Game changer, right?
isn't it? It's
I
like
get
all of
the
a sudden,
little tinglies that start at the top of my head, and I can feel them kind of go through my body. It's really incredible.
it it is. I just know it's like my sad pill.
Yeah. Sometimes you just need that,
It's just like, especially when it's kind of the sad for no reason, like it's just kind
Yeah.
of a pity party type feeling, why am I so sad right now? Why am I
Yeah.
down? And yeah, that along with obviously nature, forest bathing and yoga and stretching and
Cardio.
hydration. But it's just, I love that you have that same feeling. And I will quickly add, I know we're almost done,
Yeah.
but so then as we talked about earlier, there's DPA, then there's LPA, which is for low catecholamines, and then together they make the DLPA. So you would think, now that I've described that DPA and tyrosine, which is LPA is a precursor to turning into dopamine, you would think that DLPA would be like my favorite amino acid. It's not. I have to use them separately. It's so interesting to me. When I take DLPA, I don't. That's the one so many people in recovery from alcohol, they love right away, because that's what people drink to escape and numb out, and but it does give that little bit of spark, right, in the morning when you're flat. But for me personally, I don't get that experience. I use them separately. So it's all about, the education of teaching people, number one, to trial them, to learn what to try based on symptoms, and then to not be afraid to really like even pick it apart, like I just said. So if DLPA didn't quote unquote work for you, why not pull it apart and use just the DPA and just the LPA, and just look at, I love keeping track of the data, and I encourage my clients to keep track of their data. And then it's this concrete, it's amazing. It's a concrete, factual piece of paper chart that you've created, and you can elaborate on to kind of get to the best balance, because the whole goal is to get your brain balanced so that you're not reaching for something to feel different when those symptoms pop up.
Right. And I love taking the chart and scoring it initially. And then, after 6 months of working with somebody, or 3 months or whatever, you go back and score it and show their numbers,
Yep.
and how those have usually shifted, in tremendous ways. And I do want to say, I should have said this in the beginning, but I'm going to say it now as a disclaimer. There's, amino acids are considered GRAS, which is generally regarded as safe. There's really nothing stopping you from going out and buying them at your health food store and trialing them. But when I was listening to you talk about how you actually love tyrosine and DPA taken separately, I can't even take tyrosine or DLPA because both of them result in headaches for me every single time. And you can have so many different types of reactions, albeit probably mild, like a headache or nausea or whatever. or an uptick in anxiety, but we are so biochemically different. And so, like I said, there's no reason why you can't go out and try these, but you should know 100% that we didn't have time to talk about all the potential contraindications. We did mention like serotonin syndrome earlier, but in order to do your due diligence, if you really wanted to try these, you really need to educate yourself and do the research and figure out which one to trial first, and does it interact with medications that you're on. Here's the easiest way though, if you don't want to do that, which is what I recommend, which would be working with me or Chris. We offer very different forms depending on what help you're looking for. I have a group that is a membership group launching very soon called Recovery U, and we're going to take people, on a 30-day people that sign up and want to do that within the group will be able to take advantage of doing 30 days of amino acid therapy, where I will help people in a group setting really walk through creating a targeted plan for themselves, and I'll be available to them on that journey. But what you have done, Chris, and I never say never, but it is very likely that I will never try to duplicate what you have done, because you've done it so well. You can totally tell that you're in your wheelhouse when you did it. You created like a DIY amino acid course where you can purchase this course from Chris. And I'm going to, have her talk about it a little bit more, but you can purchase this course from Chris. She literally walks you through step by step how to do the charts, how to trial the amino acids, what are the potential outcomes, what should you be looking for. I have had access to this course. I have looked at this course. I'm blown away at how highly detailed it is without being overcomplicated. It's simple. It shows you exactly what to do. I do not have the skill set to create a course like that. Because my skill set really is around more of just like talking and verbally processing. But I'm just amazed at how awesome and amazing this thing is, especially for the price point that you're offering at. It is so much more valuable than the price point that you're offering it at. But if you want to close us off, because I know we have to run, close us off with talking about that course, and giving us the information of how we can learn more about it and get in contact with you.
Okay, great. So yes, I, after having worked one-on-one with people for close to 5 years, I did gather, I realized I continued to repeat myself with every description. That's why I decided, why not just put this in a course? So the amino acid therapy portion, as you mentioned, is literally step-by-step, exactly what to do. It has video explaining, first it describes what is amino acid therapy, then a video explaining how you're going to use the resources that are in that module. It has the worksheets we've referenced, the craving type questionnaire, and very importantly, that precautions questionnaire created by Julia's office that has the most up-to-date information on any contraindications that might preclude using a certain amino acid. I walk you through the trialing process, how to record your trialing, how to create a schedule for yourself based on the trialing, and then the worksheets to chart weekly so you can hopefully see that your symptoms are going down. And then I also have, I have like a master dosing worksheet that's 4.5 years of work all in one sheet. It's like my pride and joy.
Yeah,
and then a plan B, which is where I say, if this doesn't work, it's okay. All data is good data. So if you didn't respond to a certain amino acid, that's information. So let's move on to the next one. Offering some suggestions like adaptogens, ashwagandha, and velvet bean for low dopamine. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really, really comprehensive. But wait, there's more. It gets even better, because that was an entire course, just that amino acid therapy piece. But what I've done is I've put it into a 7-step course that walks a person through literally from the beginning of build your base supplementation, make sure we have the cofactors, the fish oil. There's 6 or 7 different supplements that I recommend. You don't have to get them all, but I tell you why you might want to have them. So that's step 1. Step 2 is the amino acid therapy. Step 3 is looking at blood sugar regulation. Same thing, description, video, worksheets. Step 4 is gut health. We didn't even touch on that. We can do that another time. Step 5 is eat real food and all about diet in recovery. Step 6 is check for food allergies, because so often we're getting these negative side effects from food intolerances, more intolerances or sensitivities than allergies usually, as you know. But by taking out gluten, by taking out dairy, people can feel immediately better, brain fog is cleared up, etc. And then the last step is exercise, move your body. So it's what I call the 7 steps to feed your recovery. And our whole topic from this podcast, again, that's all just in step 2. But I have a group online where you get the whole course. You can start wherever you want. If you've never gone through anything like this, I definitely suggest starting at the beginning. And then it's a HIPAA protected platform where everybody can ask unlimited questions. I am there to answer them, not anybody else, me. Right. And then every other week I have a live Zoom call where people either share their questions in advance or bring them to the call. If you want me to look at your chart and make recommendations, I look at people's schedules they've written for themselves for their amino acids. The last time we met, we talked all about the eat real food, what that means: no processed food, no alcohol, no sugar, no artificial sweetener. So it's really client led for what people want to hear. And if it grows to the point that I need to add more sessions, I'm going to. But right now, everybody's really enjoying it. I have 30 people in the course, are just benefiting so much. And it's really, I love teaching it. And then if anybody ever wants a one-on-one call to supplement the course, then that's available. So, and that's all found on my website, which is nutrition4recovery.com. So nutritionforrecovery.com. And it's called the 7 steps to feed your recovery. And you can sign up directly there. Or you can always, from my website, request a free 20-minute discovery call if you want to feel more comfortable conversing with me before signing up for that. That's fine. It's all on the website. And I really hope that people start to reach out, because like Kelly, I'm so passionate about what we do. There need to be, you and I are still trying to crack the code on getting the information out there.
I know.
And yeah.
It's going to happen. But yeah, I will put Chris's website as well as her email address in the show notes so that that's easily accessible for you to either sign up for her free discovery call, sign up directly for her course. If you do choose to sign up for her course, I've partnered with Chris as an affiliate because I believe in this so much. There is a drop-down menu that will ask you like who referred you. And my name will be in there, Kelly Miller. So please choose my name. Full disclosure, I do get a small kickback from people that will purchase her course through hearing about it through this podcast episode. But I think that's a wonderful thing, because what that does is support me to keep doing this podcast. Yes. It's part of what will help to support me to keep yammering in everybody's ear, which is one of the primary ways that I'm trying to get this information out there. So, go check out her course. Send her your questions. There's literally no better person than Chris Engen to walk you through on these things for sure. Thank you so much for being here today. This has been a great conversation. I wish that we had a whole nother hour, because there is so many other things that I want to talk to you about. So would love to have you back on. We can take a deeper dive into some of those other topics. But thanks for being my friend.
Thank you so much. I feel like I've met you in person, and we've never met in person, but we will, because I will be in Denver again very soon. Yeah. Where are you in Denver?
I'm just south of Denver now in Parker, but I have lots of plans to go to California too. So we will meet up eventually.
We will connect. And it's just been such a joy knowing you from the inception, and feeling the passion that you have lines up with mine. I know we energetically found each other right from the beginning. So Thank you
Totally.
so much for hosting me on this. And I'll absolutely love to come back in a couple months and we can dive into the next topic. So,
Yes. Amen to that. All right. Thanks, Chris. Thanks,
okay.
everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.
All right. And eat your avocados.
Yes. Eat your avocados.
Bye.